Welcome to the MarketRent Weekly Brief, your go-to source for the latest insights and updates in the real estate market. Each week, we'll bring you the most important news and trends to help you stay informed and make smart decisions. Let's dive into this week's episode.
Welcome. Today we're going to get into a really fascinating transformation happening in commercial real estate. It's pretty exciting. We're seeing this explosion of innovation, really driven by powerful digital insights. Think about PropTech equity valuations. They jumped, 27% just last year? That signals a huge shift. Data is not just a nice to have anymore, right? It's essential. About 25% of rentals are using these sophisticated platforms now for analytics, forecasting, and we've seen market rate rents climb pretty dramatically, like 26% since 2020. Firms are leaning heavily on these tools. But here's the twist, and it's kind of surprising. Despite all this amazing progress in conventional real estate, there's a big area that's been, largely overlooked. We're talking about project-based Section 8 or PBS8 affordable housing.
That's exactly right. These digital tools, they've completely changed the game for market rate analysis. But the affordable housing space, especially PBS8, operates under a really unique regulatory framework. Plus, it's very service-oriented, and those factors create some distinct challenges for just standard rent analysis. But we don't really see this as a limitation. Honestly, it's a huge opportunity, a largely untapped one for property owners to get to true market alignment, optimize their assets. We're talking potentially millions in overlooked value if you know how to navigate it.
Okay, so that's our goal today then. Let's unpack why standard market rent analysis falls short for PBS8 and, crucially, how you can actually leverage all this modern CRE intelligence while staying compliant with those complex rules. Let's map out that strategic path forward. So starting with that gap, what exactly makes PBS8 so different? Why doesn't the standard approach work here?
Well, the biggest challenge, hands down, is the sheer regulatory complexity. It's less like a market survey and more like navigating a maze, honestly, a very structured one. See, PBS8 properties fall under specific frameworks, like HUD's Section 8 Renewal Policy Guidebook. That's the rule book. So doing a rent comparability study, an RCS, for these properties needs way more expertise than just running numbers through an algorithm. You need specific documentation, detailed justifications, market interpretation that aligns exactly with HUD's methodology.
Right.
And what we see is that the common rent databases, they often lack that specific structure. They just weren't built for it. This creates these, blind spots that can actually discourage owners. They might miss out on legitimate opportunities to align with the market, leaving real value, significant value on the table.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not just following rules, it's knowing the intricate pathways. Okay, but beyond compliance, you mentioned hidden value. Talk more about these non-shelter services that standard platforms seem to miss entirely. This sounds really important.
Oh, it absolutely is. This is a major limitation of typical CRE data platforms. They struggle to properly assess, let alone value, non-shelter services. Think about things like after-school programs, maybe, or transportation help for residents, dedicated security, wellness programs on site.
Things that really impact residents' lives.
Exactly, and they represent substantial value. But standard analysis, it just overlooks them routinely. So you might have a property with, say, great elder care services. Standard data might value it at X dollars. But if you assess and document those services correctly, under HUD guidelines, it could legitimately support a rent of X plus. That flows right to the bottom line, the NOI.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, it can be really significant. Properties offering these services often look undervalued in the databases, which means missed opportunities for rent adjustments that are perfectly legitimate. And importantly, HUD's updated guidelines do recognize these services. They allow for their valuation and rent setting. So there's a real disconnect there between the data and the reality of value.
So it's not just the big federal rules or these valuable services. It sounds like local factors play a big part too, right? Like the national picture doesn't tell the whole story on the ground.
Precisely. Automated models, they tend to use broad assumptions. They often fail to account for specific local policy overlays or, regional preferences that really do influence rent determinations. You might have state or local housing agencies layering on additional requirements.
More complexity.
Exactly. More complexity that really needs human expertise to navigate effectively. You need someone who understands that local context to get an accurate HUD-compliant analysis. Without that specific, nuanced insight, even the best national data can kind of lead you down the wrong path. You might end up with suboptimal results or worse, compliance headaches.
Okay, so that paints a clear picture of the challenges. Let's pivot to solutions then.
Oh.
Given all this, how can multifamily owners, developers, managers, how can they bridge this gap effectively? What's the best way to use all this powerful CRE data but stay compliant and really understand market alignment for PBS8?
The best approach we find is what we call a data-enhanced methodology. It's not about ignoring the data, absolutely not. It's about using it smarter, filtering it through expertise. So this approach strategically combines high-quality data sources, the big industry platforms, with deep regulatory knowledge and, just as importantly, field experience. It's about using those platforms as really sophisticated intelligence sources that inform professional analysis and decision-making. They don't replace the professional.
So data informs, it doesn't dictate.
Precisely. It's an integration. The data might tell you what is happening in the market, but the expert tells you why it's happening, and crucially, what you should do about it in the context of HUD rules.
Can you give us some practical examples? How does this integrated approach actually deliver results? Let's make it concrete.
Sure. Let's break it down. A few key areas. First, think about SFMR analysis and market positioning. SAFMR, that's Small Area Fair Market Rent. HUD updates these periodically for specific areas. So, we track that data across markets, but we pair the analytics with professional interpretation. This helps spot alignment opportunities that pure data might miss legitimate rent increases that were basically invisible before.
Okay, finding hidden potential.
Exactly. Second, comparable property intelligence. Platforms are great at finding properties that look similar physically, right? Same size, same age maybe. But a professional team evaluates if those properties actually meet HUD's strict comparability standards. They look at neighborhood dynamics, those service offerings we discussed, the overall appeal. Things only human assessment can really judge accurately. This makes your comparables much more defensible.
Makes sense. Apples to apples, HUD style.
Right. And finally, it's about market intelligence with a compliance focus. A key part of this data-enhanced approach is systematic quality assurance, making sure all the required documents meet HUD standards before you even submit the RCS. Very proactive, and it's a game changer. It leads to much shorter review cycles with HUD, much better approval timelines for rent adjustments. Think weeks, maybe, instead of months waiting for an answer.
That's huge for cash flow and planning. So it sounds like data provides the foundation, the raw materials, but that human judgment, that professional touch is still absolutely critical. What are those specific areas where expertise really makes the difference, the things that affect rent levels and how defensible your submission is?
Yeah, you've nailed it. Beyond the raw data, professional judgment is indispensable in several areas. Take property condition assessment. Standard platforms might note the building's age or square footage, basic stuff, but they can't truly evaluate its visual appeal, the quality of upkeep, the impact of capital improvements. Professionals look deeper, maintenance logs, CapEx schedules, just the observable condition. This is vital for justifying adjustments and picking strong comps.
Right, the qualitative aspect.
Yeah, exactly. Then there's non-shelter services valuation. We touch on this, but valuing things like health counseling or meal services, they have real rent value under HUD rules. But getting HUD to accept that value requires structured documentation, solid cost justification, and a careful narrative. Experienced teams know how to do this, using different methods based on the service, the cost, even regional precedents. They ensure it's accurate and compliant.
So building the case for that value.
Precisely. And finally, something often overlooked: strategic timing and market navigation. Knowing when to submit your rent comparability study can honestly make a huge difference in the outcome. It's strategic.
Timing matters that much.
It really can. Submitting during peak SFMR cycles, for example, or just before scheduled market adjustment, often results in a more favorable alignment with benchmarks. This means actively tracking SFMR changes, regional rent trends, even HUD policy shifts. Getting the timing right could mean the difference between a flat renewal and, a significant increase.
That's fascinating. So timing is another layer of strategy.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned local knowledge. Does that really add that much tangible value on top of broad national data?
Oh, absolutely. It's invaluable. Combining national data with really granular local expertise makes a massive difference. Let me give you a couple examples. Think about California market dynamics. Southern California, especially, has incredible rent variability, super diverse submarkets, sometimes changing block by block.
Right.
So you need careful interpretation to tell the difference between, say, a short-term price spike and a real sustained demand trend. Local knowledge helps you tailor strategies based on credible signals, not just broad averages. Otherwise, you could be way off base. Or take Northeast urban markets like New York or Boston. You've got intense demand, frequent SSGMR changes, tight inventory. These factors can easily skew data if you don't have that local context. So a data-enhanced approach there combines real-time metrics with, again, timing strategies aligned with sustained demand periods. This makes your rent recommendations both competitive and truly responsive to what's actually happening right there, right then. It's precision versus a general forecast.
Okay, that makes the value of local insight really clear.
Yeah.
So bringing it all together, what does this mean for the owners and managers listening? What are the real measurable outcomes when you integrate data with this specialized expertise versus just relying on automated tools? What's the bottom line impact?
Well, the results are pretty clear and demonstrable. Properties using this kind of data-enhanced approach, they consistently see higher approval rates for their RCS submissions, and just as importantly, they achieve more substantial rent adjustments, higher on average than what initial projections based purely on automated data might have suggested. And that's not just small change. That translates directly into significant bumps in net operating income, NOI, and overall asset value.
That's a serious impact.
It is. And beyond that, this approach helps with strategic resource allocation. You can use data-driven preliminary assessments to pinpoint which assets in your portfolio have the most potential for rent optimization and do it early on. This allows for much more informed decisions about where to prioritize investments, time, and effort. It's about working smarter, maximizing those opportunities effectively.
This really does sound like a fundamental shift. So for everyone managing PBS8 properties, what's the key takeaway here? What's the strategic imperative for boosting asset performance and ensuring long-term success?
The strategic imperative is really this. The absolute best market alignment strategy is one that thoughtfully combines advanced CRE data capabilities with deep, specialized regulatory expertise. It's that combination. It ensures you're not only compliant, which is critical, but that you're also maximizing and capturing the legitimate rent potential that purely automated systems often miss.
So avoiding leaving money on the table, basically.
Exactly. Properties that don't assess their position correctly risk operating below their potential, leaving significant value unrealized. Or, conversely, if they pursue inappropriate strategies based on bad data or misunderstanding the rules, they risk serious regulatory problems down the line. The optimal path uses CRE data intelligence to enhance professional expertise. That leads to both immediate compliance wins and long-term performance optimization. And maybe a final thought. This evolution in data just reinforces how essential professional expertise remains in PBS8 market rent analysis. The regulatory maze, valuing services, local nuances, these create natural limits to pure automation, limits that human judgment and specialized knowledge simply have to fill.
That's a powerful summary. So you should now have a much clearer understanding of how integrating this cutting-edge CRE intelligence with seasoned regulatory know-how can unlock significant value and drive much smarter strategic decisions for your project-based Section 8 properties. Like you said, this isn't just about ticking compliance boxes. It's really about optimizing performance and securing the future value of your assets.
Absolutely. And for those of you listening, developers, owners, property managers who are wondering how a data-enhanced rent comparability study could support your specific market alignment goals, I'd really encourage you to consider seeking a tailored consultation. Experts in this niche, like our team at Clarendon, integrate the strengths of the big data platforms with that deep HUD program expertise. We help ensure your rent positioning is accurate, completely defensible, and really maximizes your property's potential under the regulations. It really comes down to making informed choices that benefit your assets and ultimately your residents too.
That's it for this week's edition of the Market Rent Weekly Brief. To access more insights and resources, visit marketrent.us. Thank you for listening. To learn more about how Clarendon can help you achieve your real estate goals, please visit us online. We appreciate your trust in us as your go-to source for market intelligence. Our goal is to equip you with the critical insights and data necessary to make informed decisions. Until next time, stay informed and stay ahead.